Good day and welcome to Teddy Talks to Parents, where expert advice meets everyday parenting. In today's discussion, we dive into autism and how parents of autistic children often find themselves overwhelmed by the challenge of relating to their children. The unique difficulties presented by autism can often leave parents feeling lost or uncertain about how to support their children and how to communicate effectively. But what can parents do to relate to their autistic children? Fortunately, we are joined by Inga Mdlatu, Senior Facilitator at Els for Autism, who can help us better understand this problem. Good day, Ms. Mdlatu, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Yunandre. We were very excited when we saw your email. This is something we've wanted to do on our own, but it is a lot of work. So it is a lot of work. So something like this, I think if parents can listen to something like this while washing the dishes or like doing the laundry and get something out of it, then we are happy.
No, wonderful. So, we know in broader society we have a bit of an ignorance problem when it comes to autism. So why don't we start there? Do you find a lot of the parents you're dealing with are quite ignorant, don't necessarily fully understand the implications of what autism is, how to support their children, and just generally be a parent to an autistic child?
Yeah. So a lot of the families we see hear the word autism for the first time when the doctor's like, your child is autistic. Some of them will say, oh, I've seen Rain Man, or oh, I've seen The Good Doctor. But majority of our families have never heard it before. There's a lot of misunderstanding when it comes to like a lot of our families around what autism is and what it means for my child. A lot of them, I think it becomes very overwhelming sitting there. So they take one thing and cling on to it, and then that's what autism is to them. Little do they know how much more is going to come and unfold. So yeah, I think there is a lot of misunderstanding around what it is, and as a society, we're very ignorant on neurodiversity as a whole, not just autism.
Oh no, developmental disorders in general.
Yes.
There is a prevailing kind of climate of ignorance, which is so unfortunate. So now we have a parent approaching you who says, my doctor has just told me that my child is presenting with a form of autism. So how can you help that parent? What do you tell them? How can you guide them through this process?
When I first started doing this job, I used to think like, we need to do everything now, and you want to information dump. It's very hard not to information dump. And then you realize that like this parent is going through a lot. So the information dumping isn't really helpful in that moment. So we work very closely with Gloria from Autism South Africa. And she once said to me, Inga, in that moment, the parent, it feels like they're listening, they look like they're listening, but they're just in survival mode. They want to do everything they can in their power to fix this immediately. So what I always do is, listen to what they need. If they're looking for a speech therapist, an OT, I give them those contact details for people in their area. But what we also know is that the doctors give them those things, and half the time they don't call the contacts that they're given. Then first and foremost, I'm always like, are you in counseling? Can I put you in touch with a counselor that specifically deals with parents of neurodiverse children? They think they're ready because they want to protect their child. They want to do everything for their child in that moment. But most of the time, they're not. Sometimes I have sessions with like a new family, and in that session, I just realized, wait a minute, they're not ready for this. They're not ready for these strategies that I'm going to ask them to put in place in their home. So for me, it's always like, let's do 2 or 3 counseling sessions, and then let's come back and see each other. And then we can do them both.
Yeah, I know, and I suppose it is a process. This is also going to end up being, I think for many parents, it's, expect that kind of 18, 20 years.
Yes.
But I think that changes with autistic parents. That very often that role continues well into their child's adult life.
Yes.
So you just touched on strategy. So maybe you can just kind of unpack that a little bit for us.
So one of the programs we use here at the center, something called the Ruby program. So when the Ruby program was designed, it was designed primarily for children from like 3 to 6, 7 years old, for the younger kids that have a lot of challenging behaviors, but also those challenging behaviors are most of the time due to a communication deficit, right? So with those young kids, so what we do, the first couple of strategies we put in place is prevention strategies. What can we do in the home environmentally? Can we change to prevent certain behaviors from happening? Sometimes a child will have a complete meltdown because they want water, but they don't know how to communicate that. So prevention strategy is leave a cup next to the sink, so the child doesn't have to cry. You know, they're now empowered. Oh, there's a cup. I can take a cup and open the tap and get my own water. For a child who absolutely does not like medication, what can we do? Well, you know, the one thing I always tell parents is like, use what's already in the environment. Things like a TV. A TV is going to be on in the home regardless. At some point, someone is going to turn it on. Use that to advantage. Make it seem like no TV before medicine, even though you know it's going to be turned on anyway. You know, maybe no candy, but you know you were going to give it to them anyway. So you just switch things around and make it work for you and your environment. You know, I was actually thinking of a lot of examples now, and now they're gone. But I think it's about what can you change in your environment. If you're teaching your child toilet training, what strategies are we going to use? Do you have a kitchen timer? Check. Can they sit on the toilet? Check. Use that. Take that child to the bathroom every 15 minutes and make sure that you have everything you need in that bathroom station to help you. So it's all about using what you have and what small changes can you make in your home to make sure it works for you.
So I think the kind of bigger question I'm trying to ask here is, how can a parent relate to their child? I think that's I mean, universally, when it comes to parents, I think that's the biggest thing, and it often ends up developing into favorites, etc. Because you know, I can relate more to my child who likes soccer, for instance.
Yeah.
So how can parents begin to relate to their autistic children? I know that they desire that bond, but they might not have the skills to make it real. So what would you say to a parent like that?
Oh, that wants to relate to their child. Meet your child where they are. You know, one or two things always happens is that the parent will highly favor this autistic child and treat them like an egg, or they gravitate towards the child, like you said, that like soccer. We can watch soccer together and enjoy a soccer game. But I remember this was probably like 2016. I worked at a school, and this little girl started at the school. She was non-speaking, had so many challenging behaviors, refused to use the toilet at school, and only ate toast. And she was a child that frustrated everybody in the school. And when we all decided to just change how we approach her, amazing things started happening. She started communicating using Makaton, which is a form of adapted sign language. She started just coming up so many. It was like we opened a can and we just couldn't close it back in again, because we met her where she wanted to be met. With autistic children, they've got very how do I say, they're hyper-focused interests. And this particular girl just wanted to be on the trampoline, and it frustrated us because we're like, we can't get in the classroom, we can't work. And one day we're like, we're taking the work to the trampoline. So it meant sitting on the trampoline, getting work done. We're painting on the trampoline, we're drawing on the trampoline, you know, we're doing colors on the trampoline, and she did it. And we just have to change how we think play should be, how relation should be. autistic and neurodiverse children do this incredible thing called parallel play, where oftentimes they're seen in a playground playing by themselves. But they're playing with you. It's just, don't touch my stuff and I won't touch yours. And because if you remove the other children in the playground, they probably won't play, because that's how they're learning to play. So even doing something next to your child, if they're building blocks, build blocks next to them. You know, it doesn't have to be playing with them where we're doing turn taking. That's a skill that can be taught. But for now, meet them where they want to be met. If they like music, play the music and have a dance party at home. You know, whatever music they're into. If they like trains or cars, do it with them. Because we have a particular session called reinforcement, and part of the reinforcement is playing with your child. Get on the floor, take off your shoes, roll around, you know, but play is not, adults don't know how to play. Unfortunately, we don't know how to play. I want to say they, because I hope I'm part of the adults that do know how to play, considering I work with children, but it's something you always have to do intentionally, you know, to get there. But reimagining play is the key to connect with your child, I think, and meeting them where they want to be met.
So the one thing I have noticed in my very limited exposure to autistic children is, while their emotional kind of intelligence struggles at time, very often their IQ is higher than even your average human beings.
Yeah.
So how can we begin to nurture that? I mean, I know we love to use the good doctor as an example, and obviously that's an extreme.
Yeah.
But very often a lot of autistic children are hyper intelligent and can understand kind of very complex problems better than the rest of us.
Yeah.
So how can we nurture those talents?
Yeah, it's actually, I think the percentage is 46% and above, right about there, have like, have like a 46 or 50% and above have a very high IQ, right? So how do we nurture that? That's a very good question. I was having a conversation with someone on Saturday at our sibling support group, and she and I were just talking, like, we are living in a world where autism and neurodiversity is becoming a bigger and bigger reality, and the world needs to start adapting. We need to start adapting the things we have to support them. I mean, they all have fascinating skills. You can get a 2-year-old doing like algebra, right? But he can't tie his own shoelaces or take himself to the toilet. So, you know, like those splinter skills, that is very interesting, because I think sometimes we try catch up. So what splinter skills are, like I just explained, a child who can do mathematics, but then, you know, can't tie his own shoes. The skills don't have like a foundation. They're kind of like all over the place, right? I think we spent a lot of the time, or in the previously spent a lot of time trying to catch up the other skills that aren't there yet, instead of trying to nurture the ones that are there, so that, you know, because if they're good at that, let them do it. You know, why not? Let them go far. We'll figure out what happens, you know, there. But I really think support, we can adapt a lot of things to help them. I know we focus a lot on, like, a child must read, they must write. A lot of autistic people that I work with would be 16, 17, 20, unable to read and write. But get them to do other stuff practically, and you'll be amazed. So I think definitely support in putting things in place. Like, if it means color coding a filing system so that they can get it done, we do it for dyslexic people. Why can't we do it for autistic people? You know, putting visuals in place. And I'm thinking also for things like driving license tests. A lot of autistic people can't get a driver's license because they can't get a learner's, because that's a written test. So what can we do? You know, we need to adapt. We need to be able to adapt things so that there's like a fair playing field. If we think of employment equity and all those things, there's a big emphasis on disability and physical disability and how we can make sure that we're accommodating everybody. I really think autism should be part of the conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it really should be. We need to put accommodations in place. I always make an example. If someone comes, if we employ someone in the wheelchair, our thing is, do we have a lift? Are we able to accommodate this person? But with an autistic person, no one considers that maybe they need a lift as well to get from A to B. Maybe that's their accommodation. So we have an autistic colleague, and we're very aware that there's certain things we need to be mindful of when it comes to his tasks. I can't just send him 50 emails and say, do this for me. Have I set him up for success? Just those small things, small but big.
No, exactly. And I mean, I don't think we do that regardless. If someone has issue with pressure, for instance, we don't take that into consideration. We're not great at being accommodating, I think, in general, as human beings. And we love to create these binaries, either you're normal or you're the other. Yeah. And then as soon as you're the other of any kind of variety, then it's an issue.
Yeah. But I think we're learning.
I do too.
Yeah. We don't know what we don't know. And I think that's also the biggest problem. I used to be so frustrated by people and the questions they ask and how they ask their questions and the terminologies. And I used to be very frustrated. But I think we need to give people grace. They don't know what they don't know. But also after you've given a person information, then that's a different conversation. Once you've informed them of the things they can do and things they can try. But we, as a society, we still have a long way to go. People are hearing the word. There's whispers, but I don't think they fully understand what it means.
No, I agree. I do think we have a lot of work to do, but the very fact that we're sitting here having this conversation means that we're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
And there's progress.
100%.
Wonderful. So I think this is a good point to leave off today. A big thank you to you, Inga Mdlatu, for your incredible guidance and support. I know parents out there will be very grateful for your help.
I hope so.
Find us next week for more helpful tips and suggestions from your trusted experts. Teddy Talks to Parents is proudly produced by the Teddy Bear Foundation, where children go on their journey to healing. Thank you very much, and see you all next week.